Today is episode 4 of Breaking Generational Curses. We will be discussing establishing healthy boundaries. So again, just know that help is on the way.
So a boundary. What is a boundary? A boundary is a limit you can set on what you will accept from another person's words or actions. And these boundaries can be material, physical, mental, or emotional boundaries.
You know, boundaries are really important part of our lives, and it really takes a process to kind of figure it all out, and it can be overwhelming, but I'll tell you where you can start.
Okay.
Choose you. Okay.
That's it.
Just make it simple. You know, before we get into all the, well, my mom did this, my friend, my coworkers, start with yourself and choose you and work inward to outward.
Okay.
Okay.
Do what?
Do what? In to out. In to out.
Tell us what that means a little bit more about the in to
out.
Okay.
When you're looking inward, you know, you really have to figure out who you are and what you will accept and you won't accept, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you kind of get that going, then you can take it outwards, you know, and you can start looking at how that reflects as you work alongside other people.
Mm-hmm.
But know what your limits are for yourself. You know, get in contact with you, and when you're out here in the world, just remember before you start thinking about the next person, what they gonna think, what they gonna do, what they not gonna do, always default to you.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Super
Choose me.
awkward.
Yeah.
Choose you guys.
It makes me think of too, and then for those who have flown on an airplane, in those emergency instructions where they tell you put the mask on yourself first, before you go try
to
to
save everybody else.
Exactly.
You gotta take care of you, or you're gonna be raggedy and ain't gonna be able to do what you need.
Right, and everybody gonna just die.
and it's true because I always kind of think of dying like literally. Sometimes it's not that literal death. It's like, I said somebody crossed my boundary, and now I'm in this really horrible relationship where I feel like I'm dying, or I should have said no to my boss when they asked me to take on this extra project, and now I'm dying in that literal sense, or I'm dying of depression and anxiety because of not like chemical imbalances, because of the type of situations in the community that I'm not attached to. So I think about dying like it shows up that way, even in your boundaries. Like your death does not have to be like a literal death. It shows up in so many ways in that.
That's a
So in my idea of establishing a healthy boundary is when it comes to my happiness, my mental health, my peace, pretty much everybody is disposable to me. Like, I refuse to keep you around and take a space in my life, and you're costing me my peace. You're costing me, you know, my livelihood. I can't do that. I refuse to, and I also make a decision based off of the quality I have with those people, and not how long I've known that person. I don't care if I've known you for 10 plus years. On year 10, day 3, you have decided that you don't want to, you know, be a part of my life, and you want to cross boundaries that I've created. You got to go. It won't be it won't be a year 10, day 4. It won't be, you know. And I can't do that because I have, and I also too, honestly, some people get stuck up on who they are to you, like their God-given role to you. Like, that's my sister, that's my mom, that's my dad. Well, just like you can identify that that's your mom, your sister, your dad, they should be able to realize that that's who you are to them as well, and that they should be able to respect you and respect the boundary that you created. Like, that's just point blank, period. Yeah. Okay? But yeah, those decisions become easy to me when I start realizing, like you say, choose me. I'm choosing me.
Yeah. Did y'all hear when she said those decisions become easy?
Yeah. I did. That's it.
Like, she let that slip in, but like that's so profound because I think we can almost make it a struggle. It's just like this tug of war, but she's like, no, it's easy. 10 years, 3 days, don't matter. Gotta go.
Yeah, I like that too, because if people can become disposable in that way, because in that establishing healthy boundaries, you've already said, hey, this is how I would like to be treated. This is how I treat you. This is how I like to be seen. And if people can't hold that space for you, then it's okay to let the way you
is.
Because what is the point of holding on to those relationships?
Exactly.
Besides this nostalgia of, you know, just like, oh, I've known them forever. That's my sis. That's my cousin. Like, it doesn't matter if you're going to treat me like trash when I come into contact with you. So that novelty of who you are to me is very, like, if you can't treat me well, if you know me for 10 years, then you should know that I like to be treated a certain way, and I like to be loved a certain way, and I like to be appreciated a certain way, and I don't like people to talk trash to me about, you know, certain things. So, like, you should know how to treat me if you know me. If you're not gonna take the time to know me as I transition, as I get to, you know, change who I am, then what's the point of being in that relationship?
That's true. That's true, because I realized too, I was talking to one group of friends, letting them know that I feel like I've outgrown my older group of friends, because they're used to that whole, you know, and I am still happy-go-lucky or whatever, but I'm also like a serious person. I have things that I want to, you know, get across to them, and they just take it as a joke. Or if I tell them to don't do this, I don't like this, and they do it anyways, like, yeah, I probably would have thought it was a joke back then, but I was probably still masking it with insecurities and stuff like that, you know. And now, but now,
masking it.
I'm letting you know for real how I really feel when you do that to me, and you still taking it as a joke, and I'm really telling you it affected me. So now you gotta go, because I told you.
And that's a huge boundary right there, because you see how you want to be treated, and when they don't do it, it's easy, because you're like, every time I'm in contact with you, you treat me like trash, or you treat me in a way that I feel disrespected, or just uncomfortable, unhappy, whatever it is. If you continuously treat me like that, then, you know, me holding on to you is causing me more stress than it is to just go with
that's too, like, that toxic level of interaction right there. And just like, why would you sit there and walk around with some damn cyanide in your pocket or something?
Right. Come on.
So, like, I'm gonna push my glasses. Because people can bring you down to that point. If you don't have those healthy boundaries and relationships in place. It's basically being with somebody who's poison. It's going to trickle down into all your life, leading to like resentment and stress and all kind of stuff. And so just being able to set those boundaries is just invaluable.
That's true.
Altogether.
I really like that too.
I do.
And so even just thinking about when you're letting go of people, you're, you know, the idea of like, oh, I've had 20 friends or whatever, how many Facebook friends, you know, Twitter followers, whatever people are doing, right? So like we get caught up in that quantity of that instead of that idea of like having that quality in relationships where it's like, I might only have 2 really good people that I can, you know, talk about who I am truly, because I'm new to establishing boundaries. I'm new to those things. So it doesn't mean anything that, oh, I might only have 2 close friends. Like that might be all that you need right now. Because if you are leaning into and telling your truth to these people who just because they have had, you know, years in your life, like what does that actually like? Can they hold space for you truly as you transition and, you know, make new boundaries?
And even with that, I think it's important to know too, as you're making the transitions, who are you making the excuses for?
And she said, "Who?
Tell us more." When you're working towards these boundaries and just identifying where you are, looking at the people, the relationships, the interaction, you're like, who are you making excuses for? So where people are doing stuff, you know it's fucked up. You know it, but you make an excuse. Oh, that's just it. Oh, that's just my husband.
They justify your raggedy behavior.
Oh, that's just my job. And you keep making excuses, and you're getting smaller and smaller in this toxicity. And
wait a minute, can you pause for a second?
Okay.
You say you getting what?
I'm getting smaller.
That's profound. Smaller and smaller.
Giving out all these excuses and shit when your boundaries are clearly being disrespected and violated in most of ways. And that's just so fucking trash. It's just poison. It is a slow poison.
I really like how you described it as poison, because we think about it as something like, oh, it's okay that they've done that to me. It's okay. But like that is slowly poisoning yourself. Like it's okay. Like we can grin and bear it through it, I guess. It's a little bitter, but we notice where those small boundaries where, say somebody calls you too late at night, like, oh, they're calling me at 11 p.m. Like, oh, I want to talk to them, but I'm sorry. We know your phone going do not disturb at what?
9 o'clock.
9 p.m. Right?
Okay.
I'm calling you.
Don't. You can call.
Okay, and get
you better call 911 if it's an emergency right now, because I ain't picking up.
But that's a big boundary of just thinking about like people having access to you, and I think that is like a huge one for me personally that I was just so unaware of in the way that because the way my brain was thinking and the way that the world moved was vastly different.
Okay.
And so So I had to back up and say, okay, I'm giving people these access to have conversations. So it's just the idea of really just setting, good boundaries, being open to new boundaries, knowing that when you are with somebody and you establish like, oh, I see that this relationship is moving in a way that I'm uncomfortable with, or it's something I no longer want to have anymore. So I can pause and say, hey, y'all, I'm not going to be as available. Hey, I'm not going to be around. Or I can say no more often because, we don't practice no enough. Practicing no and being able to just say, hey, I'm open to these new boundaries. Like, I'm still fond of this person, but maybe not to that same level that I was. And I just need to be able to back up on that. And I be able to set new boundaries. And to notice that if somebody shows up and butts up against those boundaries and what that looks like, am I going to keep letting them do that because I'm like, oh, that's just how they are? Or am I going to,
ignoring the red flags?
Oh, come on, come on, tell us more.
Talks about a red flag. What about a red flag?
Right. We going to throw it out there. Tell us about it.
I think people think that red flags have levels. No, to me, a red flag is a red flag no matter how big or small it may seem to you. To me, if I tell you to not do that to me, you've done that. No matter if I told you don't call me after 9 o'clock and you choose to do so, I just said don't do that, and you blatantly disrespecting me and not doing what I told you to do. Versus, like I've had a friend who said, "Well, she compare her relationships to other people. I don't do that. I focus on what I am a part of.
Right.
So I can't say her relationship worse than mine because he's actually physically hurting her. Meanwhile, I'm in a loveless relationship myself. No, like a red flag to me is a red flag. Do not cross those red flags. If you don't know where they are and I don't tell you, then I can't hold you accountable. However, if I tell you what they are, then I need for you to respect that. If you're going to be my friend and you're going to stay being my friend, because I am the shit. So at the point when you feel like you don't want to be part of that, then you can go.
I'm still calling my ass in now.
but like even in a way, like you might forget a boundary. Like legitimately, we might call you at 9:04, but it's gonna go straight to voicemail, and then we're gonna go, oh yeah, I'm reminded. Now if I call her at 9:01 every single night,
that's you stepping.
Or 9:01,
if I'm calling you every single night, if I'm calling you at 9:07,
it's not an emergency.
Or even being at like 10, 11 o'clock, you're like, oh, I really want to tell her this.
When I can send you a text message
about you,
a voicemail or whatever, and just like so you can check it on your own time. But it's just like infringing on yours, and then letting you be like alone. If I'm your friend, I'm gonna support your boundaries. Why would I violate them just for my benefit? Like that's trash.
I'm so glad you said that about the my benefit, because I think a lot of times when people are shifting into owning their boundaries, the other people on the outside make it about them.
So
and
true.
it's like, it's not about you. This is something I'm setting for myself, I'm doing for me. But people will be, well, I mean, you just seem funny and you're this and you're that. No.
And if I am,
you
need to elevate with me. Like, and I'm making this seem like it's easy, which at this point it is, but I had to condition myself to be this way because I wasn't always this way. I really wasn't. Like I had a friend who I allowed to cross my boundaries 3 times to the point where I was $4,000 in the hole, or not in the hole, but she owed me that much money.
Right.
I was something like, what? Why are you not understanding this girl is not gonna pay you no money? She asking you for more money, but it takes a lot for me to just say, I don't want to help this person out. But now I've learned to know you can go either create a GoFundMe, you go to your local church. I don't know what you can do, but at this point,
you can't do it.
At this point, I can't do it because I still have bills to pay. And I still have things to do with my money.
That first red flag, I really like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
It brings it back
it's
to
red, y'all.
Yeah,
That's what she's saying. It doesn't matter. It's red.
And
it's
so,
some conditioning.
Yes. And just like the continuation of, like, I know what my boundaries are. Like, even like we talked about at the beginning, checking in with our boundaries, thinking about it. If I notice that a boundary, because sometimes we don't know what to do with boundaries, right? What do y'all think where people can do to start making those steps to hold themselves accountable, hold other people accountable, or just some action steps to be moving towards those things?
I think communicating, like just expressing it in a nice way. You don't have to be mean about it, but expressing, like after a certain time, like I don't take phone calls, or and then it's that holding yourself accountable to it too, because I've been in positions where I know I have a boundary, but then the person may call and I may be like, but what I'm doing is I'm being counterproductive if I don't hold myself to it. Right. Okay. Because then I'm giving in to that, but then it goes back to what you were saying about that slow death. But then I'm dying. I don't want to die. I want to live and be great.
So
So taking that step and that moment to, you know, sit with yourself first, figure out what you need to do, and then hold yourself to it.
To piggyback off of that one, off of what you just said, I would also want to add to don't cross the boundaries that you create. As far as if you don't want someone doing it to you, don't do it to them. And you know, like you said, don't be lenient. Be stern and be firm on what you stand on. Like, listen, this is a hard no. It's not gonna happen. So I would just say be firm and don't cross the boundaries that you have created as well.
So true. I'll just to piggyback and add on too, is when you're setting those boundaries, thinking of what you want and what you don't want in those relationships and those interactions, because most people don't know what their boundaries are. So what upsets you? Who upsets you?
Come on,
What's
that
again?
What?
Who and
Okay.
what? Who and what? What are they doing that leads you to being unhappy or that? And once you start like identifying these things, then you can be like, okay, so if Jacob pisses me off every day because he's complaining about clothes being on the floor or whatever, and you have a conversation with John, hey, can we work on this, blah, blah. And if John don't meet the criteria and he just not willing to work with you, he's crossing your boundary. You stated the boundary on how you want this done, that. And if that person can't fulfill that, then that's violating your boundary. Crossing. And so by having that awareness, you know what you will accept and won't accept. And that's how you start choosing you in the process. Because like, I don't want to keep this poison. And that can go like, that's friends, family, person at the grocery store, work, or whatever. You have to you have to have that awareness of what your boundaries are and know yourself. Know what upsets you. Know what doesn't. Know how you want this relationship to go. And that's not saying that you can force it that way.
Right.
But if you can identify those things in yourself and you can set those boundaries for yourself, you can better navigate the world and the interactions of others. And so some people, you just gotta let go of the poison.
Okay.
It may be hard sometimes, but stick to your boundaries and choose you, because ultimately at the end of the day, this is your life. And you don't need to just sit there and chuck it up to whatever happens. Take control. Have some intention. So if you know this person right here, all they do is fucking complain, don't go around there complaining stuff. You can choose to not be around that type of energy, that type of person, and things like that. And that's part of your boundaries. You could say one of your boundaries is you don't like people who just always negative or always complaining. That's one of my boundaries.
Okay.
All of our boundaries.
You ain't never had me.
Oh, baby.
But come let me embrace you a little bit. Elevate. Listen.
Just saying. So that's my take on it.
So I want to what you said kind of made me think of other things. So where do y'all think we can just name some boundary crosses that people aren't aware of? Like, we can say, okay, somebody's borrowing money too much. We can say that that's something. If somebody's punching me in the face, eventually some people might realize, okay, that is a boundary that I don't want. So what are some like small little boundaries or other things that might not be as common that we don't think of as a boundary? Maybe like even ideas of enmeshment or anything like that.
I had like a couple things going on in my mind.
When I threw in the enmeshment,
I was like, one thing I can honestly say about myself is I respect and understand that I have a circle of people that I enjoy being around, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna put all these people together. Right? Because I just like to be very intentional about the space, because everybody can't be in that space. They might be great and grand. So I can be a little territorial in the sense of if I get invited somewhere and there's some mutual people there, but I didn't know they was going to be there, I am the friend that will call you out and say, so you you just invited them and you didn't tell me. I thought this was me and you today.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, oh, but I mean, we all know them. I said, yeah, but that wasn't the space I was intending to hold today.
Okay.
So now I got to hold a different space.
Well,
what do you mean? I mean, we all cool. I said, well, this energy and space that I created with you is just that. It's special, trust me. So maybe I was coming with my intent and purpose today to have that space. Now I got to open that space up.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be kind of hard for people.
Like
They be kind of looking at me like, well, dang, I thought we was all cool. I didn't say we weren't all cool. I just said that when I planned this with you today, it was supposed to be me and you.
Right.
And now you're offering, and I used to hold back and not say it, and I would just kind of go and be in the spaces and kind of, not say things or whatever. And last year, I just was like, look, bitch, I thought it was going to be I didn't know we was doing all this extra stuff today. But I mean, she cool. I said she is, but I ain't want to see her today. I want to see you.
Right.
You know,
I love that.
I know people, that's hard for people, they be like, but damn, I thought we was all. And I was like, no, we're not all. There's no all. No, it's not
I love
all.
that though.
But that can be a little stank. People be kind of like, but that's just my boundary.
But that's a boundary.
Yeah, and
I love that.
I'm sorry,
That was
y'all.
good.
Sorry, not sorry.
I like that one. That was good. I think of the idea because I threw out mission. I guess I'll think about
You
that.
did.
It could be I just like work. I'm gonna go with work because that's always like something I think that we ignore how enmeshed in our job. I think I might even seen something online recently that talked about where people's jobs have been asking them to prioritize their job more.
Huh?
Access denied.
Right.
Access denied.
Boom.
Even the idea right now, we're still kind of living in a very virtual world.
True.
Like it's half virtual, it's half not virtual, but it's a virtual kind of world. And even people working from home, people expect when you're working from home, working for yourself, people think that they have 100% access to you. No, Tina, we go. I don't even
Cracking it up.
All right, I was like, oh Lord.
Okay, anyway,
But you're ready to serve.
Right, but it just makes you think like your job wanting you to prioritize you. You're not being able to prioritize your own peace. You are literally at your house and you are like panicking because you are overwhelmed at work, or maybe even the idea now that you are at home away from your office, you realize how enmeshed that office space was. Like you are feeling obligated to talk to people at the water cooler or have a lunch with them, because I definitely had a thing where I was told to always have lunch with people. Like it was like, oh, you don't have lunch with us, you don't have lunch with us. But I'm definitely the type of person where like you see me being social, but I'm also an introvert and I need my own time to be able to take my own space. So for me, a boundary was at least to be able to say, I've been with y'all for 6 hours. Like, let me just have this little 17 minutes, like to just sit quietly and take a breath, just so I can, just ground myself. And then so it's just like that was a big boundary, but they wanted to be enmeshed in every moment, and it became more than just like, okay, we're at work, and then okay, we got to be enmeshed after work, and then what about if we do a weekend event, and then now you're working with this other agency, so they want you attached to this agency, and so it becomes so much where your whole world is consumed with a job that you are doing for money, not enjoyment,
and the same amount of money.
She said same. She didn't say increase.
The same amount of money every year, no increase, nothing, no.
Doing the most.
Like want you to do the most, like just literally fighting to be able to make this money, and you are raggedy for them. And so to me, that's a huge boundary of just like stepping from that enmeshment of your job. Like, yes, they give you your money so that you can survive, but like, how much are they paying you? Are they paying you for the 40 hours? Are they now like keeping you from the rest of the hours in your week? Like, cause I gotta answer the phone too. I gotta respond to this. I have to do this. I can't wear this on Tuesday when I go out to the grocery store because one day they might see me. But anyway, we just started to notice how enmeshed these things become in our lives, and that we have to.
I'm glad you brought that up though, because I can clearly see where I didn't have my own. I didn't set my boundaries, in the workplace. And people were always calling me and texting me and asking me questions, even on my day off. And I would get frustrated, and then one day I just was like, "But you're allowing it.
Yeah.
You gotta do something
That's
different."
that realization.
Yeah, and I started to go, when I'm off, I'm really off.
Yeah,
You know,
Right.
don't call me, don't text me.
I'm glad you said that because what I was gonna say is that would be aside from saying no. I know where I used to get so overwhelmed with my previous jobs, I would it'd be to the point where I just say, I can't do anything anymore. But what I've done was, because my birthday lands on the 12th of May, so what I used to do every month on the 12th is set aside Shanika Day. That's just my day where my phone is on Do Not Disturb.
Choosing you.
Choosing me. So my phone is on Do Not Disturb. You can choose to tell somebody that, like I told my grandma, so one about be worried, grandma would be away from my phone. So the 12th, I did what I wanted to do. If I wanted to sit at the house and do nothing, if I wanted to go walking, if I wanted to go to the movies, or whatever I wanted to do on the 12th of that month, I did it. And I would say choose a day where you can just pick your day, and it's just you focus on you. Whatever you want to do for you, do it.
Yeah, I like that.
I love that. You know, I had somebody recently ask me, so when do you, and y'all, I'm a little ignorant, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna go ahead and preface it. So somebody asked me, like, so what day of the week do you take time out for yourself, like to do fun things and all that? And I said, y'all, I said it so freely and I wasn't trying to be smart. I just was like, I take time for myself every day. Okay? I don't just pick one day. I said, but there are certain days where I have more time to do things. I said, but usually I try to do something to meditate or relax, throughout the day. And the person just kind of paused, and it was just like this weirdness in the air.
So another aspect of boundaries I feel is important to address is the emotional boundaries that we have. So when it comes to like the emotional boundaries, it's important to know your feelings and how to separate your feelings from other people's feelings.
Separation. We need to slow that down.
Yeah.
You need to know your feelings and how you separate those feelings from other people. Because this day and age is so easy to take on other people's feelings and emotions. Even like, and that's like not even consciously doing it, but just by not consciously and intentionally setting those boundaries for yourself, it's easy to take on those other people's things. And so you have to give yourself permission to have your own feelings as well too. So like if maybe one day I want to sit there and fucking cry for like 20 minutes or something just because some fucked up shit happened, give yourself permission to do that. Because that's part of your own healing. It's choosing you. So you can choose the emotions that you want to experience, the emotions and feelings you want to experience at any time. You can be in a fucked up situation and everything is going wrong. You can choose to be bothered, upset, angry, sad, depressed, or you can choose to look at it from a different perspective and see what positive can come out of that, or how you can grow from that experience and stuff like that. But unfortunately, not everyone in the world does such introspection, things like that. So that's why you have to start with you and not take on those feelings of anyone else. So if so-and-so's mad, okay, they're mad. If I try to calm them down, tell them to calm down, they don't want to calm down, let that person have their madness. I'm not finna sit there and fight and beat a dead horse.
No obligations.
No obligations at all. Do you? So in that situation, like if you need to, you do what's best for you. If you need to go into another room, you go down the street or whatever. Either way, you have to do what you can to help with your emotional boundaries and maintain them, because people will come to you with all their shit. They will come to you, and I've been in situations like that, like whether school, work, or whatever, where people will see you as that person that they can talk to and that access and things for that emotional comfort, because they know that you might be
so many words.
All the buzzwords today, y'all.
All the words and then some. But like, I think that emotional boundary monitoring is what can really help you, because it can get away from you super quick if you're not paying attention.
You can monitor.
And you could do a simple check-in with yourself.
Come on, tell us. Tell us something. How could we check in?
Yeah, how do you do a check-in? So, I'll give an example of my check-in. So if I'm like starting to notice myself not being chipper or not feeling like doing shit or something like that, do a check-in. Okay, what am I feeling right now? I think I might be kind of bored. Am I depressed or anything? Is something wrong? I don't know. Okay, well, let me evaluate. Let's look at everything going on. Okay, got school going, got this going. Everything's going pretty well. All right. Well, so where does it come from? Then, once again, you thinking, who did I just talk to?
Did she say
I just got the phone with mom or brother or work. Who I was just interacting with? And then, so you see, it's like a chain effect of check-ins. Like, okay, am I feeling this way because the person I just talked to, or the situation we just talked about, or we experienced? What led to me getting here? And once you can identify, it's like a map. You are here. So figure out how you got there by looking at the map, and then that will help you determine where you need to go to get yourself back in that space that you need, to where you are feeling better, you are having that healthy boundary and healthy emotional experience. So it's kind of like that process and pattern is good it doesn't happen overnight, but you have to practice it. And the more you practice it and the more you engage it, the more intuitive you become, to where you can start picking up on things, to where the second a red flag come up, you're like, not doing this today. You go ahead and snip it in the butt. So like, that's part of the process.
So where have y'all kind of seen where people let overwhelm become like their personality, or people say, oh, I'm so depressed, but if we take them out of literally like that relationship, then they probably wouldn't be depressed. So just like, where do you see overwhelm showing up in boundary setting?
Attachment issues. Some people are so they are so in need of someone they want to attach to, that they will attach.
Right.
So someone where they will also take on and adopt that person's toxicity or that person's problems. And I've seen that too. It's like, well, why are you so involved and so engaged and so emotionally attached to this problem? You're not even physically attached to this problem. It has nothing to do with you. So why are you so involved in this person's relationship with this other person? And then you over here stressed out how they're gonna solve their own problem. Well, it's not even your problem to solve. So it's like some people, them having attachment issues and codependency on other people, where they adopt that person's problems.
I like that. That also, look, I can see codependency showing up in work or being exploited at work. Definitely exploited at work. I always be having so much to say about the workplace.
Listen,
but I think that's where a lot of time is spent, though.
Yes.
So
those patterns that we learned at home in our relationships, those play out in work. Like, you can tell some people don't have much outside of work by the way that they operate at work.
Definitely.
And so you can tell what that looks like. We can let's try to make that sound real eloquent. Like I try, you know what I mean? Like you notice it because their boundaries are, weak or non-existent, and they expect that to be for you. They expect you to overwork or you to overperform for something that just because they don't have anything else going on. And so that's like that overwhelm. You take on their overwhelm because they feel less than, and that they have to keep doing those things. You start to take on that too, and they just won't cross your boundaries.
Yeah, kind of like with the family dynamic too. Sometimes, I've noticed where, say, if a father is getting beat up at work and he go home and take frustrations out on the children or the wife or whatever, they don't have a way to compartmentalize all of that, and it trickles on to the family. Then the little boy will be angry, the little girl will be beat up on or whatever. So
come on,
that's creating that generational curse.
This went full circle.
It does. Some ingredients, right?
And also at work, because that supervisor didn't have it together.
That we just continue, even those curses, again, those generational curses can show up in the workplace, and they just so raggedy in the workplace. I read something where they talked about how America, just our system, our society in general, hasn't moved away from the idea of slave labor, and so we continuously continuously push people as if they're still slaves.
Yeah.
And we still move in that way. So of course we should have 14 staff members, but we have 7 because that's just the way it is.
And we're gonna do it.
Yeah, and we're gonna keep pushing through, and we're gonna do that. And so in my mind, that's an idea of a generational curse that we continue to perpetuate, because we're like, oh man, that is how it is. I've seen everybody else before do this. Well, like, okay, but how about we just hire some people for real, y'all?
Right.
And so thinking just from that generational curse perspective, let's take a trip down memory lane when it comes to boundaries. So have y'all ever seen to where you either were a little kid or you were by a little kid and you're like, oh, go and hug such and such. And the kid doesn't really want to hug that person, but the adult is like, no, you need to hug them. That's a boundary violation. Big one.
Girl, tell that again. Because that is a big one that nobody pays attention to.
Listen,
right?
That's
You're
forcing a kid to have physical contact with someone that they don't want to. But because you're the adult and the authority, you're like, no, you go hug your grandma or you go hug this person. And that's crossing a deep.
What is that teaching the children about their own body and what they can they say no?
Right? Can they?
Yep. And they make a big deal about no's too when you're a kid too. So you're basically being forced into all these different violations.
You can't challenge an adult, you know that, and they know they're wrong. But because you're a child, you need to stay in the child's place.
That child's place thing too.
So all of that is mental boundaries, emotional
Yes.
boundaries, physical
Boundaries.
I mean, you walking around with a lot of violations.
Tell us, Tina, because we know that you got something to say about this. Go ahead.
I used to tell people all the time, especially in the workplace, whether it was physical, emotional, mental, I would say lane violations. And people would laugh and go, what do you mean? And I said, well, example, if my role is to be the leader over the clinic or whatever we're doing, and you cross over into my lane, I'm like, no, like, go back to your lane.
Okay.
I'm not in your lane. I'm over here. But people are so enmeshed and they just feel like they just have this right to invade. And I'm like, you don't have a right to invade.
That sounds very much like a colonized
mindset
to me.
Yes. So we used to always tell the kids that came into the clinic, you know, you don't have to hug people, you know, like I can remember a family at the end was like, oh, Miss Tina's been so nice to you guys, you know, go up and give her a hug. And the kid would kind of look at me and I would literally model in the middle of that and say, no, you know, he or she does not have to hug me. Like in this environment, we have choices. Now, if a kid came up to me and hugged me on their own, I definitely wouldn't go, oh my God, don't do that. I wouldn't do that. But I would never, you know, allow a parent to say no. Because I can remember being a kid and people would say, oh, go hug Uncle so-and-so, you know, that's your uncle. But no offense, I can remember my mama being off to the side going, you better not hug him. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, what's happening, you know? And I can, me and my mom, and we joke about it now. She's like, yeah, I didn't want you to hug that person because I knew better. And it's like, oh, okay. But, you know, a lot of times you're right, in these communities, we don't have choices. And that whole thing about the child and the adult and staying in the child's place, I'm always talking to my kids about that. And they will remind me, you know, I mean, I got ready to, sometimes I'm joking too, because I'm a jokester. So I came around my 20-year-old and I got ready to hug him or do something. And he was like, And I said, not now. I said, not right now. And he goes, no, not right now. And he goes, and he, with a straight face, y'all, he goes, I really don't want to be touched right now. Not even by you, Mom. I really don't even want to feel comfortable enough. To tell you. And I just had to go in the room and be like, damn, I really talked them well.
Because some parents will get offended by that.
But I don't get offended because usually he'll give me a look and I'll be like, too much. He'd be like, yep, bring it all the way back down. And I'll be like, but I'm just so excited. He'd be like, you can be excited over there, but you don't have to touch me, Mom, to be excited. And I'll be like, oh. And I'm just reminded that I taught them that. So, you know, now they just be like, bag up, sis. You done got too amped up. But, you know, I think we need to give those spaces.
Yes.
And we need to start when these children are younger so that when you become older, you'll know. So even though I would always be afraid when my kids weren't around me when they were younger, I felt good in knowing that I had modeled and showed them myself. Like even for me, you don't want to be bothered with a hug or a kiss. You don't have to be, because sometimes I'll hear family members go, "Oh, that Jonathan don't hug and kiss no more." I said, it's not that he doesn't, but if he don't want it, he don't do it.
Right.
And they'll be kind of looking at me like, "Dang, that's kind of harsh." I'm like, no, it's the reality.
It's autonomy of his body.
Yeah, if he doesn't want it, he doesn't.
The whole person.
Right.
And I really like that idea of really just even again taking it back to that childhood, because that's when we start to notice those boundaries. And if we let uncle such and such hug us, auntie such and such hug us, or sit on somebody's knee, and we start to where we don't get to say, maybe nothing happens to us, right? But it's still that idea of somebody can violate. I don't want this touch. It is still unwanted, even if it's even in a loving way. It's there still what does it matter that because the touch is loving? I don't get to set that boundary. And how does that show up in young adulthood, where I might want a partner when I'm 15 or 16, and it's like, oh, well, everybody says I have to give them touch to show love. What does that look like? How does that look like? How does that look up? How does that show up in young adulthood when we're in college, or even just that age? If we don't go to college, when we're in that age range when people are expecting physical affection, and we've always learned that that's the only way that we can show people affection is physical. And so we think about boundaries as something small, and always be talking about work. It extends. We started small and show how it extends.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing I noticed in myself, let's say someone around me, they're emotional and maybe they started to cry. I do a really good job of just allowing that to be. But if I feel that I want to extend a hug, I will ask the person. And I notice when I do that, they kind of go, I'll go, can I give you a hug? And they'll be like, nobody ever asked me that. Well, I'm not going to just roll up on you and hug you, because I don't want nobody rolling up on me. And even though people I've had people just roll up on me and give me a hug. And I felt violated. I was just like, why did they just come up to me and hug me?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can be my sister. If you are really in distress, a part of me would be want to just come to you, but I'm going to be like,
right.
Is it okay if I give you a hug? Or I may even ask, is it okay to get closer to you?
Yes, that's a big deal.
Because but people are just so accustomed to, that's my girl, I ain't got to do that, they want it. No, you don't know what they want or not, But my kids, they keep me in check. Right.
Come on. I like that. Yeah. I remember talking to a guy, and I was like, "Oh, can I hold your hand?" He was like, "Oh, but I already know you. You can hold." I'm like, "Okay, well, that doesn't mean that in my world." Like, so again, those healthy boundaries showing up even in consent, where it's just like, yeah, I'm just asking to hold your hand. It might not be a major violation, but you might not want your hand held. Like that might be weird.
That happens to me.
That's that modeling piece too. That's so important. Is modeling that for others. And as we just discussed, it can go horribly wrong when you're modeling toxic boundaries at a young age. And even as you went through the lifespan, like going for young adult, and even when you get into adulthood and in a marriage and shit, that's just still carry over.
Come on.
That you done brought in violations.
Come on.
Girl.
Especially and that obligation stuff, especially with the romantic relationship. It's like, well, now we together in this relationship, so I should give you a hug, I should give you a kiss, I should have
access to all of you.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I can see how that shows up.
It crosses over real easy.
Yeah.
She said,
yes, it could.
You're right. It just.
Yeah, because we don't think about how it truly shows up in adulthood, because we just assume that in our childhood we just live in this vacuum, and then we turn 18, poof, everything that we learned in our young adulthood and our young life, none of that matters. So that doesn't make any sense. So we really have to pause and think about where these boundaries are showing up in our lives, how they show up, what do we need to do to keep them going. And notice that if they've not been modeled around us, it doesn't matter. Like if you are so used to like, oh, my cousin always comes over to my house every Sunday and eats up all my groceries and it really frustrates me, but that's what they used to do to grandma, so I don't want to tell them. Okay, but what does that boundary mean for you? Yeah. Ooh, come on, Cassandra, wrap it back. But that it shows again, that is that part, you're making an excuse. So notice what's happening for real. Stop making and again, no one at this table is saying that it's going to be easy. No one is saying that, oh, I'm just gonna set this boundary and everybody's gonna respect it. Nah, folks, I mean, let me tell you.
They're gonna try you even more when you set that boundary.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna try you even more.
They try you so much. They gonna test it. They gonna dip a toe. They gonna do everything to try
several times.
Yeah, several times a day.
Not one time, several times.
In the
If
same
you're real about if you're intentional, if you're real about you mean what you say, and it's gonna show.
Yeah, and that's why you cannot violate your own boundaries, and you gotta hold you gotta hold yourself accountable, and that hold them accountable, because you know that if you let down that boundary, you see what's gonna happen. If I answer this phone this one time for this person because I really want to talk to them at midnight, when I told them, hey, my phone goes on Do Not Disturb at 11 p.m. Like, that means that you have until 11 p.m. to contact me. And if you do not, then I will catch you in the morning when it comes off of Do Not Disturb.
At 7 a.m.
Right. And even when I wake up at that time, doesn't mean that I'm going to get you back to you quickly. But it's just that boundary. Just noticing what your boundaries are and know that you can change them. It can go up and down.
You can do what?
You can change them. Like if you decide today I'm going to let this person talk to me this way, and then you went home and you did some self-reflection, you talked to your community and you were like, you know what, this felt like trash. My boss was rude to me, my coworkers rude to me, my cousin was rude to me, my mama is doing too much. Whatever that boundary, once you realize that the boundary has been violated or that you want to switch it, it's okay. You ain't got to do no special prep work. If they said, oh, yesterday you let me do it, baby, today is a new day. You don't have to have
You're
this
10 day 4.
Right, like you don't have to have this prep and this lead. And let me show you how much I've changed as a person and prove to you that I deserve this new boundary. No one cares about any of that. If the next day you change your boundary, baby, guess what it is? It's fucking change.
It's change, period.
It's it.
I love that.
That's it. Respect.
And
then
that
too, you have to be able to respect other people's boundaries as well.
Come on, because
it does
go
now.
It
does go. So if someone is telling you no to something that you want, you gotta respect their boundaries. If that's the way they feel, like they don't have to justify it to you, just like you don't have to justify shit to them. It goes both ways with that. So, but by understanding your own better helps you to understand that person as well. So you can really help out the relationship by turning in and choosing you and working on this shit.
I like that. You know, I really enjoyed today's discussion about boundaries, and I just want to be able to leave you guys with a few tips. You know, I feel like we all contributed so well today. It was beautiful.
We did.
But I really want you guys to remember to choose you. Okay, that's really where you want to start at. Okay, and then 2, you want to recognize your boundaries. You know, do some reflection so that you can understand who you are, and then just remember that you can change your boundaries. It's okay. If you need to go back and reflect and go in and make a change, it's okay. And then 4, set boundaries. All right. Start small and work your way up so you can elevate. And then 5, last but not least, stick to your boundaries.
Stick to them.
And just know you can have that grace and that space to come back as many times as you need to.
Yes, baby.
All right. And keep sticking to them. And look, if you get off track a little bit, just come on back. Come on back to yourself. Self is waiting on you.
And this video.
Okay. Watch it again. And
Definitely.
again.
And show all the people around you, because you can't exist in a vacuum in a small place. You can't just do it by yourself. So if you are shifting, you're changing, you're going to want those people around you to shift and change. So share with your family, your friends, the people around you, your coworkers, whatever. Share so that you can have a community around you that understands you and moves and operates in the same way. So that is a part of your setting your boundaries. It's noticing that and sticking to your boundaries. It's building people around you who will allow you to be you in your new space. Awesome.
Yes, elevate.
Yes.
Elevate. You guys are great.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. And again, like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell for more episodes on Breaking Generational Curses. And again, remember that help is on the way.